someone who works in museums, or in this museum as historian, you obviously also look into how things are presented. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, certainly. In the past, if you have a look at dioramas, etc., that sort of scenes made up where people show them, show how people were in the past, and even pictures in school books, etc., you'll often find an awful lot of gender bias. I mean, even when I was young, there was a lot of gender bias. You'd always get the men that would be sitting there flint knapping or hunting the animals, and the women would be spinning or looking after babies, and that's the way it was always presented. And in fact, in a lot of cases, there's not a great deal of evidence for it. Now those ideas are being questioned and sometimes deliberately subverted as well, to make people think, sort of Celtic female warriors and such like. And I think that's a good idea, because it makes people think twice about how women were, not just in the past, but also, is there something natural about that? Because if you show things in the past, people begin to think that it's something natural that's happened. I've also noticed changes as well, you could say, in the type of workforce. Most people who work in museums are women, but it's still assumed that by the public that it's usually men who work in museums. And even before I got my PhD, I was still getting letters to Dear Sir. And that was quite recent, and it still occasionally happens. So there is still some idea that if you're in charge of something, you should be male. And I notice sometimes that myself, I mean, I'm biased as well. I've noticed that I often assume that the person I'm going to see is either going to be male or female, depending on what their interests are.
Yeah.
So, but things are getting better, but it is very slow to change.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's been this way for so long, so I guess it's really inside our minds.
Yes, and we don't want it to slip back to how it was in the past.
So you touched a little bit on this just now, like how has gender bias affected your career as a scientist or as a historian?
Well, I could say in some ways that gender bias has made it possible for me to study Egyptology, because my father said to me when I was looking for courses to study at university, he told me later on that he didn't dissuade me from doing archaeology or Egyptology, because it wouldn't matter, because I'd have a husband to look after me if I didn't manage to get a job.